But when a policy harms New Yorkers, I have to speak up. Just look at cities that allow encampments, and you'll see the damage. Worse, leaving people to suffer in the cold isn't just neglectful, it's a disgrace.
Listen, whatever you think of Eric Adams, he ate with that one. Guys, up first, we have to check in on New York City under their new mayor, Zohran Mamdani, who is, of course, a radical left-wing ideologue and longtime activist who describes himself as a socialist. He's very obviously open and outspoken in the radical change he wanted to bring to New York City, and they are off to a not-so-great start. New York City, like most parts of the country, although not like Miami, where I am. Though we had cold here, but it was like 40 or 50 degrees. Anyway, most parts of the country had a cold snap, like a pretty brutal winter weather crisis in some places, including New York City. And tragically, 14 New Yorkers lost their lives so far and counting amid these freezing temperatures. And unfortunately, some of Zohran's new policies may have worsened the effects of this crisis. First, to just kind of understand with what we're dealing with here, let's listen to some reporting from local CBS news station in New York.
We continue our team coverage of the extreme cold gripping our area.
Yeah, the mayor now saying 14 people have died as a result of these dangerous temperatures. And Noelle Lilly is joining us live from the warming center in Kips Bay here in Manhattan with the very latest on this. Good morning, Noelle.
Good morning, Doug, Jen. This is just the kind of cold that just bites your face. Any part of your body that's exposed, you're going to feel that cold, and it's really, really dangerous. We have been in this kind of weather since January 19th with this cold front. And again, as you reported, the mayor said tragically, 14 New Yorkers have died in this cold while being outdoors. Now, we do know, again, this cold front in the city, because of it, has issued a code blue since January 19th. A code blue alert, per city rules, means no one in need of a place to stay can be denied shelter. The emergency management team in the Department of Social Services puts out a code blue whenever the temperature with wind drops below 32 degrees between 4 p.m. and 8 a.m. I can tell you we are well below that threshold now. And that's not to mention the leftover snow we've seen from last weekend that still has not melted. It's been too cold to melt, and it's instead just gotten slushier and icier out here, making a simple walk down the street a battle. Now, the city has also been trying to increase their warming centers across the city where you can go during the day, and that includes like here where I am at Bellevue Hospital.
Offering warmth, food, medical attention, and a direct path indoors. We are also opening a new low-barrier bed shelter site specifically to meet people where they are and remove obstacles to coming inside. And I will continue to remind New Yorkers, this cold is dangerous. Remain diligent.
During the city's last hope count for 2025, 4,500 New Yorkers were reported to be living on the streets. So if you or someone you know is in need of shelter, or if you even see someone in need of shelter, you can call 311. They can find a warming center, and again, with this code blue, they will be given shelter.
So this is obviously really tragic stuff, and unfortunately things like this can happen in major cities and in different parts of the country, regardless of political leadership or parties. And Zohran, I know Candace thinks the Jews can do it, but I don't think the Muslims can, at least not yet. Zohran can't control the weather. So what is the political angle here, of course? Well, there is one, unfortunately. And Zohran made a big policy change in the spirit of compassion and empathy, or I believe, as he called it, the warmth of collectivism. Yeah, that policy change seems to have aged terribly and possibly worsened the death toll during this winter weather crisis. We're going to get into all of that. But first, do make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit the like button if you're watching us here on YouTube. And please consider becoming a channel member. Hit the join button. Check out the pinned comment or the link in the description to support my content. I don't pander to the far left or the far right. I call BS, and I try to just give my honest opinion. So I need support from viewers like you to make that happen, and you will unlock early access to ad-free episodes, no mid-roll YouTube ads. I disable those for the members so you won't get interrupted mid-sentence with some YouTube inserted ad. Anyway, hit the join button or become a member now to support my content. It's the best way to support me as I call out the craziness from across the spectrum. Now let's talk about the policy side of this sad story out of New York City. And the New York Post has done a lot of reporting on this. Here's the headline. Mamdani says being mayor, quote, couldn't be better as 10 die in New York City deep freeze and city faces $12 billion budget gap. They really know how to write a headline. They have an art for that. Anyway, more here. Mamdani has faced questions and outright criticism over his softer approach to pulling homeless people off the streets after the weather-related fatalities came to light. The mayor stopped homeless encampment sweeps when he first took office and has said forcibly getting people off the streets would be a quote-unquote last resort in a clash with critics who want the city to take a more urgent and heavy-handed approach to getting people inside during below freezing weather. At least 6 of the people who died had past interactions with the city's shelter system, according to the mayor's office. So here we kind of come to the crux of this issue. On one hand, you have even Mayor Eric Adams, who was a Democrat, though he kind of had a lot. There's a lot to say about Eric Adams, and a lot of it is not, in fact, good, but he wasn't ideological, committed progressive or anything like that. Anyway, he had a more strict stance where they would sweep up homeless encampments and disperse them. And remember, as sad as it is, because most of these people, are suffering from different maladies of different kinds or mental health issues or addiction struggles or, they've had hard times in life. So I'm not here to just say they're terrible, they're evil, it's all their own fault. Nothing like that at all. But as sad as it is, you don't actually have a right or it's not legal to build an encampment on public property. And I'm actually, I don't believe, unlike kind of the Zohran Mamdani progressivism, that it's compassionate to let them. I don't believe it demonstrates empathy to let them make their own bed or really to kind of seal their own fate when it comes to these winter weather crises. Because, for example, unfortunately, a lot of these people are not in the right state of mind to make smart decisions. So the mayor can open up warming centers that they can go to. There can be shelters that have to provide them access. And some of them will make dangerous decisions to stay outside and will die. And that's what's happened here. So that's why previous mayors enacted these kind of tough love sweeps where they would be taken to shelters and their encampments would be dispersed, right? Well, Mayor Mamdani came in and he is all about the warmth of collectivism. And apparently that means doing away with this. And unfortunately, it's hard to say for sure that every single one of these deaths could have been avoided, but I imagine some of them could be if these people had been forcibly brought to shelters or to warming centers, and they're not allowed to freeze to death in encampments, because that's really the kind and compassionate thing to do. Nope, that's not how I see it, at least. But anyway, more details from Eric Adams here. He wrote in a tweet, on December 5th of 2025, I begged then Mayor-elect Mamdani not to reverse our policy that kept homeless New Yorkers from freezing outdoors in makeshift encampments. He didn't listen. 10 New Yorkers are now dead. At New York City Mayor, reinstate the policy now. Every day of delay risks more lives. And so, of course, the death toll has sadly been updated to 14. But then Eric Adams attached a video that I went and found where he actually, all the way back in December, he called out Mamdani planning to change this policy and said, don't do it. Here is that video from a few months ago. And I wish that Mamdani had heeded his warning. Listen to this.
Earlier today, Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani announced that once he takes office...
I'm sorry. Side note on Eric Adams. You need to be able to read and learn. Like, this is my other problem with this guy. He's right about this policy, but why can't you say Zohran Mamdani? It's not that hard, brother.
Takes office on January 1st, he'll stop sweeping homeless encampments across our city. I won't criticize him on every issue, but when a policy harms New Yorkers, I have to speak up. Showing compassion for those sleeping on the streets is not a sweep. It is humane. Ending this action will create a quality of life nightmare. Just look at cities that allow encampments and you'll see the damage. Worse, Leaving people to suffer in the cold isn't just neglectful, it's a disgrace. Throughout the last close to 4 years, I was adamant about cleaning those encampments because we cannot tolerate a city that turns a blind eye to human suffering. I urge the incoming administration to rethink this, and I urge New Yorkers to raise their voices. Let's call it what it is. Labeling the abandonment of our homeless neighbors as progress is a slap in the face to real progress. It's not just misguided, it's shameful, and we need to call it out for the disgrace that it is.
Listen, whatever you think of Eric Adams, he ate with that one. I'm sorry. He's clearly got a point, and it's interesting that he made this warning months ago, and Zohran didn't listen. Zohran decided, no, because this is what you have to understand is that Zohran comes from the background of the Democratic Socialists of America movement and political party, and kind of the far left ideological fringe of America. And they would view things like law enforcement dispersing homeless encampments as a form of cruelty, a form of state violence, and they would really object to it strongly, and that's what's motivating Zohran's move here. Now, I disagree. I don't view it like that at all, but I'm not surprised to see, especially given the types of people that he's staffed his administration with so far, very much being DSA-adjacent types. And I won't even get into the woman who thinks like home ownership is white supremacy and all that nonsense. But to me, this is like, it's just a microcosm of everything that's wrong with this ideology that they make sound so loving and compassionate and empathetic and kind, but in reality is just delusionally utopian and optimistic, and it doesn't work out. And then he's just stubbornly committed to it. So even after you have all these people dead, Mamdani still says he will not change this policy. Here's the New York Post. Mamdani still will only force homeless New Yorkers off the street as a, quote, last resort, even as deep freeze death toll rises to 13. Mayor Mamdani said Friday he still will only force homeless New Yorkers off the streets as a last resort, even as his office revealed 13 people have now died outdoors, with even colder temperatures coming this weekend. The Democratic Socialists continued to insist that city workers will compel homeless people to get indoors only if they pose a danger to themselves or others. He dug in his heels as the real field temperature was forecast to dip as low as -1 degree Saturday into Sunday. Pressed on how city workers will determine if someone is a danger to themselves, Mamdani said numerous factors need to be taken into account before getting someone to shelter, including whether they have enough clothing on. Yeah, call me crazy, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, we'll just leave it up to city workers to decide if an individual is a danger to themselves and guess if they have enough clothing on, when you could just sweep the encampments and take the people to the shelters whether they want to go or not. Like, call me crazy, but that is just common sense, I fear, that allowing people to seal their own fate and doom themselves to freezing to death, people who are in the grips of addiction or mental illness in many cases, just because that's what they want to do or think they want to do. It's not even what they really want to do, but they're just not in the right state of mind to be making these decisions. This is why the shelter systems exist. This is why they have code blue policies where people can't be turned away during this kind of weather. And yeah, you should enforce it. And I got to be honest with you, I knew that this kind of utopian democratic socialist ideology actually getting into a position of real power and influence in a major governance role like mayor of New York City, I knew it would go poorly. And I knew there would be severe consequences. But even I'm kind of surprised it happened this quickly, that we're witnessing this so fast. Like, usually you'd think there would be a little bit more of a build up to it or a delay, but no, it really did come around and rear its ugly head very quickly. And I'm actually, listen, I say this a lot with different policies. I understand that this stuff isn't easy, and there's competing values and conflicting rights claims and different interest groups and people in your ear. So I give policymakers some grace. In this case, he was warned what would happen if he reversed these policies, and he did it anyway. But I do give them some grace. I have a much harder time forgiving politicians who, after things go terribly wrong, double down and stick to the policy that's not working. That, I think, is even more unforgivable than the original mistake, because it shows that you're putting pride and not wanting to admit that you made a mistake over the actual interests of the people you're sworn to serve. And that, to me, is a really unforgivable mistake, more than any just actual mistake, because this stuff isn't easy. I mean, it kind of reminds me of when in New York, of course, but also in other places during the COVID-19 crisis, many of these officials signed orders forcing nursing homes to accept COVID-positive patients. Now, they had good intentions for this because the hospitals were overcrowded, so they were trying to clear up beds in the hospital for people that really needed them. But the effect was that you sent ticking time bombs into vulnerable populations in these nursing homes where they were at very high risk from COVID, but the nursing homes weren't allowed to turn them away, even if the patient tested positive for COVID. Now, I can understand in the chaos of spring of 2020, when they were worried about hospitals overflowing and not having enough beds and ventilators and all of this, how such a policy would have been pushed through. But then once it started leading to so many deaths, people like Andrew Cuomo, then the mayor of New York, decided that instead of admitting the mistake and reversing it and apologizing, they would try to cover it up and they would double down on it. And that, to me, is really egregious. So I'm even more disappointed to see Zohran Mamdani doing something similar in terms of the New York City homelessness policy. And I hope for the best. I hope that people can get to shelters and be okay. But can't say that I'm surprised to see governance already going awry under the new Democratic Socialist mayor. What do you guys think? Definitely let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and please do consider becoming a channel member to support my work.